Welcome. We're chatting with Laura Detering, the author of the Witch in the Envelope series. And she has her third book in the trilogy coming out in April. So we're excited to learn more about the series, learn more about that specific book, and why we want to go and read and consume the entire trilogy. So welcome, Laura.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So we'll just go ahead and start off by telling us a little bit about this trilogy.
So this trilogy is loosely based off of Sleeping Beauty. So it's a loose retelling of Sleeping Beauty, throw in with a hint of nostalgia from the 90s, and it's got magic and romance. And the real motivation behind this series was I'm an avid young adult reader, marketing genre reader. And I felt like where the young adult category was going was it was really pushing upper adult / a lot of adult content in young adult. And I really wanted to write something that was more geared towards the younger young adult crowd, and a book that parents could feel comfortable reading alongside their kids. Another motivation for me was, like, for example, my daughter's 13 now, and Twilight, for example, right? So she's just getting into Twilight, and it was like we were able to just really like bond and connect and swoon over all the moments and enjoy that together. So there was a lot of that for me, and I wanted something like that with moms and their daughters too. So moms hopefully wouldn't be bored, because I know it's geared more towards young adult, but there's a lot of nostalgia in there. So the book is set in the 90s, and I know a lot of 90s trends are coming back and are in stores now. And therefore I was hoping, this could be something that moms and daughters can really connect over to, and you could feel safe reading it with your child, because there isn't anything like too graphic or sexually explicit in terms of language, violence, drugs, any of that in the book.
Nice. Yeah, perfect. So who are your main characters in this trilogy?
Okay, so you have Liddy. She is 17 or turning newly 17. So she's a junior in high school. She's a dancer, and she's got like pretty good character arc throughout the series. At first she starts off, she's, a lot of teenagers have that, self-esteem issues and the way they view their bodies and themselves and their value. And so you kind of get to know a lot about her in that regard, where her past hurts and habits and hangups come from, and how she can overcome. And you'll also see Will, who is the male main character, and they were best friends growing up, and then he disappears, and then all of a sudden he reappears in her life. And so dealing with kind of how that made her feel when he had disappeared, and all the whys, and there's a little bit of mystery there. But they're love interests. And then you have a stronger cast of like supporting characters. And that is something I really wanted to work on, was having like strong female friendships. I do have the whole, because again, this was very 90s, but having like the whole like mean girl at school type of situation. But I wanted to pair that too with like a healthy aspect of what, female friendships could and should be. And so you'll have like a good support system for Liddy with a few of her friends. And so Pri is actually one of my favorite side characters. She is first generation Indian living here in the United States. So she's dealing with a lot of cultural issues with her parents. How women and girls would be treated in India is definitely not the same as it would be here in the States. And so we kind of get to see some of that as well,
Nice. And then I know you don't want to give away too much of the fantasy element of it, but yeah, from what point does this kind of go from being more of a young adult type novel to that fantasy aspect of it?
Yeah. Okay. So in book one, it is very character driven, the story. And then you get hints of like a magic system and hints of something more. And so you'll discover that there's a different realm, and the people there are considered what's called watchers. And it's partly built off of the fairy tale folklore, I guess you should say, of Saint Nick. And so you kind of get this little hints throughout. There's mystery and elements of this witch who haunts Liddy's dreams. And so it actually is kind of more urban fantasy. And where it turns more portal fantasy or higher fantasy is actually book 2, because you start in book 2, leads off, of course, where book 1 does, but then you get to portal into a new world. And then you will also see that in book 3.
So was there any part of this book that you found like super difficult to write, or that you just like it wasn't coming to you and then you had that light bulb moment, or was it all
Um,
just flowing from you?
I actually wrote this book pretty fast. It's the first book I ever wrote. And I was very, very naive to the whole writing process. Like I didn't really know anything. I didn't know about Wattpad. I didn't know anything. And I think that was helpful at first because I didn't have any preconceived notions or negativity coming to me, or how hard this was going to be, or how much, how saturated a market was, or how competitive, or all the things you have to do to publish a book. I was just so dang excited to get those words down. And then like, yay, I wrote a book. Oh my gosh, and it was like, I have to do what to do all those things. And so I didn't really find many challenges with book 1 besides kind of learning the ropes and having to do all of that. I had a great editor who really helped me change the book a little bit, because she was teaching me things about like goals, stakes, motivations. And so thanks to her help, I really felt like it just added to it. So actually for me, book 3 was the hardest because it's book, I guess I'll take this back. Book 1, the hard part of book 1, I knew this was going to be a series. And I wasn't sure how many books it would take to tell the story. So I guess the hardest part with starting a series, especially as the first books you've ever written, is where do I start and how much do I share? And how much do I resolve and share in book 1, but then leave enough breadcrumbs and story to continue with book 2 and book 3. So it was that like dance of how much I share. You're introducing worlds, you're introducing a magic system, you're introducing characters. There's so much building that has to happen in book 1 before you get to the other stories. But in terms of so getting to start was difficult for book 1, but in terms of writing, book 3 was the most difficult. But I think it's because now you're aware and you have that experience, and now you also have readers, and you're just like, oh gosh, I hope I do this story justice and finish it out the way that they would be happy with.
Yeah. So is it fair to say that book 1 you were kind of writing for you, and then by the time book 3 you're like writing because you have this audience that loves these characters?
Yeah, a little bit. I definitely want to do justice to a story. There's nothing like, reading a really good series and you get that letdown of book 3. You're like, no, I don't want it to end like this. I want to write it like this.
That's true.
So I hope I do justice to those
Yeah.
characters and to the story.
And with Liddy, what do you feel like is her biggest realization through this journey that she has about herself or about the world or about whatever?
So Liddy deals with some pretty strong themes. You're going to see the theme throughout the book for her on the whole idea of grace and forgiveness, and having to learn that forgiveness isn't for the other person necessarily, it's for yourself. Kind of like that whole saying, like it's like you drinking poison but expecting the other person to die from it, so to speak. Like, so you're going to learn, because there's some pretty hefty things that happen along the way through the book. And so there's like that theme, of like forgiveness and having grace with yourself. That's something that she's going to learn as well too, about the whole idea of like perfectionism and not letting people down, and just how much pressure you're going to allow and other people to dictate your life. And also another theme you'll learn from her is, I think a lot of teens struggle with this. I think we're all born with unique talents and giftings, and that's what makes us unique, right? And not everybody's going to be perfect at everything. And so to not be afraid to let those talents show, and to kind of it be okay to be confident, because I know growing up, if you were confident in your abilities, you were seen as conceited or yeah, or cocky or arrogant instead of, so you'll see her. So she's got a lot of amazing talent, but in book one, she's very afraid to show it because people are mean to her about it. And, there's that whole notion that some people don't want you to shine because they're jealous or they're not happy with their life. And so they're just going to make your life feel like, oh, well, you shouldn't be happy. I'm not happy. You shouldn't be happy. Or I'm jealous because you can do this and I can't. So it's kind of more like an acceptance. I'm like, this is who I am. And I'm going to be who I am. And that's okay. Like, and I'm happy with that.
Definitely. Okay. I love that.
Yeah.
And so I know it's the Witch in the Envelope series. This is book 3. This is the final book, right?
Yeah.
Final book,
conclusion.
No more. And I know that you're going to have some promotions coming out. When's the date that it releases? What kind of promotions are you having with that? And how can people follow you so that they can stay up to date on all of that?
Yeah, sure. So we have a release date of April 27th. That's a Thursday for book 3. It will be out on ebook and paperback on that date. And it's also going to be on Kindle Unlimited. And 5 days before that, for the full 5 days before that, April 22nd through the 26th, books 1 and 2 are going to be free on Amazon. Their ebooks will be free on Amazon. And then of course they are also in Kindle Unlimited. Book 3 will also, when it releases, it will also be in Kindle Unlimited. And the audio books will also be available later this year for books 2 and 3. And yeah, you can find me on my website, lauradetering.com. I'm also, my social media handle on everywhere you can think of is @author Laura Detering.
Nice. Perfect. So we'll go find you, we'll go follow you, and we'll be sure to check your series when it's complete. If you haven't started it yet, if you have time to get ready to read it all before it comes out, or if you have read it, then I'm sure you're ready for that book 3 to find out what happens. So thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Where's it stop? There it is. It's been a while since I've done